searing afternoon heat, climate change demonstrators from every generation began their march to Convent Place. Wearing symbolic face masks, there was no let-up in the demand for action.
So I think it's easy to declare a climate emergency pledge. It's easy to say the right things, but it's harder to actually take meaningful action, curb emissions, reduce emissions, and do something meaningful.
The demonstration should have taken place last week but was cancelled because of the explosion at the petrochemical plant across the border, which saw a huge cloud of black smoke released into the atmosphere. Representatives from all three political parties were waiting outside Parliament to receive a petition with 100 signatures from the Environmental Safety Group, calling for a debate on the creation of an independent climate change body.
I'm very pleased to be here and to accept the petition. I have replied informally. I've also written to the petitioners, supporting their aims, explaining what our own objectives are, and asking them to ask the rest of the community to do their own thing as individuals and organizations to achieve our carbon neutrality aims.
It does show how committed people are to the need to do something about the environment, to tackle this climate emergency. So as I say, really pleasing. I'm very happy to receive this petition, and the hard work really needs to start very quickly.
At the same time, I do believe that governments have the duty to legislate in order to make our country a cleaner place, in order to change mentalities and make sure that we follow directives that will serve a cleaner environment purpose.
We are human, and we are all suffering within this world. We are all responsible for our environment, and there needs to be change.
Because at the moment people are trying to protest this and trying to get the word out, but even now adults and politicians are trying to go against it purely for their own career's sake.
I'm here because it's already too late, I think, and if we let it go on any longer, there is no hope for our children, for our children's children. I'm terrified.
I feel like we do need to keep fighting for climate justice until there is that zero carbon emissions.
Out of the public meetings that we had, it was discussed and agreed that we would use the House of Parliament procedure, whereby if you present a formal petition, it has to be heard in Parliament, and you have to follow different sort of protocols and whatnot to do that. So it's not a straight petition, it's a House petition. So we've handed it in today, unusually to 3 MPs, 3 members of Parliament, because our whole thrust is to make this a cross-party effort in government also.
If the climate were a bank, I'm pretty sure it would have been saved by this point. Because in general, we tend to put capitalistic needs before the needs of the environment. And it's not going to be my generation that's going to be affected. It's going to be the generation after us.
Well, after handing their petition in to the Minister for the Environment outside Parliament, the demonstrators have come here to number 6 Convent Place. The Chief Minister hasn't come out to meet them. Perhaps he's busy or he's not around at the moment, but the message is very clear. The demonstrators are asking for action on climate change, and they want it now. In a statement released after the demonstration, the government said the petitioners' requests are consistent with the government's own aims. However, in turn, it asks for all citizens to support its efforts. This, it suggests, can be done by reducing air travel and by not using a car on 1 day a week. The Minister for the Environment, Cortes, also calls for a reduction in the use of single-use plastics, electricity and water, as well as a reduction in meat consumption. Maintaining some of these steps, he says, means that collectively we will all be assisting in achieving carbon neutrality.